Welcome to the Workforce Connections podcast, where we discuss workforce development in Southern Nevada. Here's your host.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the WC podcast. Today, we have another very special guest. Please help me welcome Dr. Renee Coffman, president and co-founder of Roseman University of Health Sciences here in Southern Nevada, and my fellow board member at the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy you're here as well. It takes, you're a busy person and it takes a while to get these things planned. So for our listeners or viewers that don't have the pleasure to know you, get to work with you like some of us, tell us where you were born, where you grew up, where you went to school. Maybe take us all the way to your first job.
Okay. Well, I was born in Ohio, and I grew up in a very small rural farming community, about halfway between Columbus and Lake Erie, just to kind of center you geographically. So really a very small town upbringing, and a farming community, very close-knit community that I grew up in. Really proud to be there. The name of the town is Bucyrus, Ohio. It's the bratwurst capital of America. So they have a bratwurst festival every year. That's their claim to fame.
Nice.
I graduated from high school there, and decided from talking to people, I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. I wasn't really sure what, but I had a great uncle who owned one of those old soda fountain pharmacies and was a pharmacist. And he had been a pharmacist in the town for years and years and years, and started talking to him about that and, what impact a pharmacist could have on healthcare, and decided to go to pharmacy school. So I went to pharmacy school in Ada, Ohio at Ohio Northern University, graduated from there. Went back to my hometown and worked in what really was my first job as well. I was working there as an intern in the pharmacy before I went to pharmacy school, but went back to the same pharmacy. And I have to tell you, it's very unique to go back to your hometown, particularly a small hometown, because everybody knows everybody else. And so a lot of the patients that would come into that pharmacy knew me, knew my parents, knew my grandparents, and that sense of community was something that was really, really nice to come back to, kind of like a warm blanket to come back to after you graduate from pharmacy school. But I decided I wanted to kind of spread my wings a little bit, and so I moved out of the community pharmacy and went into hospital pharmacy. So I went to another smaller town in Ohio called Piqua, Ohio, and I worked in a hospital pharmacy there for 2.5 years. But to be honest, from the time I was a little kid, my mom was a first grade teacher. Teaching had always drawn me. And so as I was spending some time in the pharmacy, that draw to teaching really came back. It's really my heart, my soul, who I identify myself as more than anything. But I knew I needed to expand my education to get to that point if I were going to teach in a college of pharmacy somewhere. So I decided to pursue a Ph.D. program at Purdue University in Indiana. So I spent 5 years there doing my Ph.D. And that led me to my first job in a college of pharmacy in California.
Wow. Like you said, many of us don't know what we're going to be when we're young. Some of us do know better than others. It sounds like from very young age, you already knew you wanted to be in the healthcare industry. Is that accurate?
Yeah, healthcare. And then the teaching was the other piece of it. And being able to, I kind of was one of the kids in high school that other kids wanted to study with me because they didn't understand what the teacher was saying. Then maybe Renee can explain it better. And so that teaching piece always drew me too. So I have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I've been in healthcare. I am a pharmacist, but I've also had the opportunity to share that knowledge through teaching.
So complete that professional journey for us now. Take us to where, you're early in your career in the industry you want, teaching. But how do you get all the way to president and co-founder of Roseman University? What's that journey look like?
Well, I would have to say my journey was a very non-traditional journey, a very unusual trajectory. What had happened was the school that I was at, the college that I was at in California, the College of Pharmacy there was looking to potentially expand into Las Vegas because there was no pharmacy school in Nevada at the time. This is about 1995, 6, 7-ish. No college of pharmacy in the state. The state's rapidly growing. It's a hub for retirees and who uses more medications, what age group? Retirees. And so, and this was also about the time, if you remember back then, where they were building pharmacies on every corner. And so the huge pharmacist shortage was exacerbated by the fact that there wasn't a school of pharmacy. So the institution that I was in was considering to expand. And so myself and a few team of other folks from that school came out here and did a lot of the legwork to make sure they had the resources that we needed, the students, the sites, the training sites, and everything looked really good. And so one of my jobs was to recruit potential students. And so I was actually telling these students, this college is coming here, we're expanding, look forward soon to admissions process. And at the last minute, that college kind of pulled out, or that university pulled out. And they said, well, we're going to do a different program instead. And we don't feel like we can extend our resources to expand to Nevada at this time. So the dean of the college at that time and I happened to also be, this was going to sound terrible, but also in a relationship. And we kind of looked at one another and we said, look, everything here is green lights. This makes so much sense. We should just do this.
Wow.
And so what we ended up doing was quitting our jobs.
Wow.
We ended up getting married at the Little Church of the West,
Wow.
moved here. He put in $5,000. I put in $5,000. And the other co-founder, Chuck Lacey from our institution, put in $5,000. So our seed money was $15,000. Wow. With that, we rented some office space. I got my pharmacy license. And so I was working pharmacy 32 hours a week. So we would have healthcare. And it was really a grassroots effort for us. We were, he was working full time on on developing that College of Pharmacy. He became the first president. His name's Harry Rosenberg. My name's Renee Coffman. And that's where the name Roseman eventually came from. But we started out as just the College of Pharmacy, Southern Nevada College of Pharmacy. And, from there, it really grew to expanding based on the needs of our community. Our hospital partners for the pharmacy program said we need nurses. So we started a nursing program. And then we couldn't be the Nevada College of Pharmacy anymore. So we became the University of Southern Nevada. And then we saw more students coming from Utah and said, hey, you know what, maybe we should expand to Utah. So we expanded to Utah. And then that's when our board of trustees says, well, we can't be the University of Southern Nevada anymore when we have a Utah campus as well. And so the board of trustees decided to take the Rose from Rosenberg, my husband's name, and the Man from Coffman.
Wow.
And that's how the Roseman name was born. So I finally like to say, and people have heard me say this before, but I put the Man in Roseman.
Yeah.
But my husband eventually retired. He's semi-retired, I would say. He's still very integral in the institution, but the board of trustees named me as the president. So that's sort of a fast forward of the last 25 years or so. I would say in the meantime, we had a daughter. She was born right before our first class of pharmacy students came on board. So she's been part and parcel of the university. And the coolest story is she went off to college. She knew that she wanted to get into healthcare. She wasn't sure what. But she investigated a few things, and I am so proud to tell you that she's a D1 in our dental program at Utah. So kind of come full circle where our daughter now is actually a student at the university that we founded.
Wow. If that's not a Vegas story, I don't know what is.
Right.
What a great story. The two of you closing the professional chapters to open a brand new one that's both professional and personal. Daughter there now in the complete circle. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that story.
Thanks.
I didn't even know that much. Wow. So let's dive down into Roseman, because I've always hear Roseman referred to as, they have a very innovative approach to education and healthcare. Break that down for us for our viewers and listeners. What makes Roseman different?
So we have a style of educating that we call the 6-point mastery learning model. And we designed this so that one of the nice things about starting something from scratch, I would say, is that you have the luxury of there's no frameworks around you already. You can build what you see as being the best way to educate. And so we started from this idea of how would we best educate the next generation of healthcare professionals? And, we thought about how education is traditionally done in universities. And, what could we do to enhance that? So, in a traditional university setting, and this is true in pharmacy schools, medical schools, nursing schools, the traditional method is you take 4 or 5 classes at a time. right? You might have Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, Tuesday, Thursday classes. And, when you really look at that and you look at the literature on how do adults learn best, that sort of just being lectured at for 50 minutes sporadically throughout the week is not necessarily the best way for adults to learn. And so we said, okay, well, and the other thing that we brought into this picture was, to pass an exam in a more traditional system, you probably need a 70%, right? And sometimes that 70% isn't really a 70% because it's also averaged, right? You have the curve, the bell curve or whatever, and the score that you get, it depends on how everybody else in the class did as well. So when you sit back and you really think of that,
do I want a 70% nurse?
Exactly. You're exactly. Do you want a nurse or a doctor who's only gotten 70% and maybe a curved 70%? So in the healthcare professions, it doesn't matter how I did relative to you. I need every student who comes through our program when they graduate to be competent entry-level healthcare professionals. So what do? So we said, okay, let's first of all, let's demand high standards. So our students have to get 90% or better on every single assessment that they take. It's not curved or averaged, so it doesn't matter how everybody else did. Each student has to attain that level. But to do that, you have to support the students so that they're able to attain that 90%. So instead of taking 4 or 5 classes at a time, students take 1 class at a time so they can focus and really drill down on the important concepts that they need to know and practice the concepts in problem solving and so forth. So our class days are typically, depends on the program a little bit, but 6 hours a day. And it's Monday through Friday. So the nice thing about that is in class for 6 hours a day, no bell is ringing to stop me at 50. You know how it is when you went to school. If a 50-minute class, the bell rings at 50 minutes, but 5 minutes before, everybody's gathering up their stuff and getting ready to go to their next class and not paying attention. And then it's almost 48 hours until you have your next class. So there's a lot in the interim there that can kind of fade away. So maintaining that continuity by having class 6 hours a day, 5 days a week with one subject matter being taught at a time helps to facilitate that learning. And so the classroom day with it being 6 hours, the other thing that does is it forces our faculty to think more about teaching methods and methodologies besides lecture. You can't lecture to somebody for 6 hours a day. So interspersed with the lecture are different types of things where students get into teams, whether it's case studies or problem solving, or sometimes there's debates that go on. We might ask people to, if we want to teach a student how to counsel a patient on how to take their medication, we can have role playing where somebody plays the pharmacist and somebody plays the patient, and they can go back and forth about how to explain to the patient how to take that medication accurately. So that time that you have during the day without those interruptions really affords you the opportunity as an educator to provide learning experiences that really enhance. I'm not just delivering information. And on YouTube today, students can get that in spades, right? Delivering of information is not educating and teaching. So we draw a distinction between that, and we created this model to help support that. Our students get tested very frequently, about every other week. And we make sure that the students really understand the material. So there's a lot more to it. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but just to say that we've really created a learning environment, learning experiences that we feel really allows us to prepare the next generation of healthcare professionals and every single graduate from Roseman to be a highly competent healthcare professional.
No, thank you for explaining that, because it helped me understand it. It took me back to my days in college where you were taking the 6, courses, and they were sequential to their, 101 to 201 to 301, but it was 6 subjects, as you said, and sometimes you only had a class once a week or twice a week. I really like the idea of this continual learning on a subject, and it being interactive. So thank you for sharing why Roseman thinks that's a more effective way to do it. Talent development, as we've been talking about, or education, is obviously crucial to building the pipeline for industries, not just healthcare. As you know, our peers, when we talk at the LVGEA, whether it's manufacturing, the tech sector, hospitality, everybody needs talent. And we're all facing this eventual departure of the talent of the workforce that is going to be the biggest in history. So do you see talent development or the need for talent as one of the most crucial challenges that the healthcare industry, in your case, the healthcare industry is facing? And if not talent, what else do you think are the biggest challenges?
Yeah, I really do think, the next generation of healthcare professionals and developing that pipeline is key. And there's a lot of sort of factors that are creating some challenges and hurdles that we haven't always had in the past. And one of them is just the demographic. If you've heard about the demographic cliff, we've got these baby boomers who are retiring, and we're replacing them with generations that aren't as numerous. And I think it's this year is the year when we have the highest number of high school graduates, and after that, it starts to tail off. And for us, our students pretty much have to have at least, for all of our programs, have to have at least 2 years of college experience before they go on there. So if you think of this funnel, and the top of the funnel being the college graduate, if that's shrinking, and then there's less of that funnel going on to college, and then there's less of that funnel that's available then to enter into our programs. So that is going to be a big challenge. We are doing pipelining programs. We have one associated with our College of Medicine, for example, called ESPIRE, where we do some really nice interactive science-based, STEM-based types of activities for students that are in K through 12, but mostly the junior high level. So we start getting them thinking about healthcare professions. The nice thing about that too is we've brought that into underserved communities. Where again, part of what I think is challenging is there's a cadre of students out there that, because maybe their parents haven't gone to college, maybe don't even think about college as an option, and they don't have a parent who has been there to say, okay, these are the things that you need to do, and I'm going to support you in that. So we also bring the parents out to these programs so that the parents hear from folks in our College of Medicine, this is what it's going to take for your kid to be a doctor. They can do it. But it's helping them understand the pathways to get there as well, so that they can support their student along that journey, so that they can be successful.
Renee, that's really good, because just like you explained earlier, what makes Roseman different in the sense of effective skill acquisition, the model you explained. In this case, my next question was going to be that when it comes to talent development, what's Roseman uniquely doing? And I heard you say, early exposure to young people, but also expanded exposure to the families, because they might not know the opportunities. Are those the two biggest things? And if not, is there more that Roseman's doing to build this pipeline?
Yeah, I think the other, and to be fair, we are just in the phases of talking about how do we capture this, but I also think that answers lie around re-educating and repurposing folks that have been in the workforce, maybe at some other position. A few years back, we had a grant from the government that I thought was very successful to bring folks that had been in the military in, and particularly those that have been medics, through a program that in our nursing program that shortened the time that they had to go to nursing school, because quite frankly, they already had a lot of the skill set that they needed, and there were just some additional coursework, some additional experiences that they needed to get through the nursing program. But I really think that upskilling individuals in the community that maybe are at that point where this job isn't as rewarding to me anymore. Maybe I wanted to be a nurse when I was in high school, and the cards just didn't play out for me in that way. So I think the second career is something that I really feel Roseman should get into and create some of these programs to support the older student that wants to come back and get into healthcare.
Thank you for giving those specifics. I think the next subject is really something that a lot of people talk about, and everybody talks about artificial intelligence now all the time, right? It's on every show, AI, and now we're starting to talk about the different types of AI and the short, medium, long-term effects of AI in the workforce. So when it comes to delivering healthcare services, or how healthcare providers are providing these services, what role do you see AI playing today and in the future?
Well, interesting that you asked that. We do have a group within our College of Medicine that really is focused on AI and utilizing AI to enhance healthcare. So, for example, being able to pinpoint where there are particular areas where disease might be more prevalent. For example, lung disease, and being able to map that out using AI on a map of Nevada to say, okay, well, here are these clusters. And if there are clusters of, again, let's say lung disease, just as an example, can we find the underlying cause so that we have sort of a public health type of response to that to mitigate any type of underlying cause, whether that might be environmental or it might be lifestyle, whatever it is. But to pinpoint that cluster, but then also to say, okay, look, if we have limited resources, how do we deploy those resources most effectively so that we are targeting some of those areas where we can identify some of these unique aspects through AI that we may not have been able to see, some of those patterns and so forth that we may not have been able to see without it. On the other hand, I think there are I think AI is very new still in the healthcare field. And I think that to some degree, there's an aspect of healthcare that will never be AI, at least I hope is never AI. You can't replace the nurse at the bedside that's comforting the patient and listening to what that patient has to say and based on experience and the time that you've spent in that profession, knowing how to answer those questions. I was at an institution, a college not too long ago, and I thought it was very interesting. One of the faculty there was telling me about an experiment that they did with their students using AI. So they had they had a research question for the students, and they had the students plug that into AI. At the same time, on a parallel track, the students were doing their own research. And then they came back and they compared the results of whatever the research question was. And they found them to be sort of dramatically different because AI still doesn't have the ability to totally discern what's out there on the internet and in the cloud in terms of what's good research versus bad research. And it still took the students who were doing their own research to be able to have that higher level reasoning skill at this point. Now, AI is getting good. Don't get me wrong, but it's still it proved to the students that critical thinking skill that they had developed was still had the edge on AI, at least to this point.
That's well put. What is, one of the things, again, early off camera, we were talking about how in your role as an LVGEA member of the board, you have just served on the search committee and put countless hours in that process. But what are other aspects of being a member of the board of the LVGEA? What's your favorite part about this?
Well, I am very passionate about this community. We came here, you mentioned that our story was a very Las Vegas story, and my husband and I frequently talk about how we don't think we necessarily could have done what we did in another location. It's a very Las Vegas place. So I'm very passionate about this community. And, I've seen it go through the ups and downs over the last 25 years, whether it's recession or COVID hits and how that changes the economy. So I'm very passionate about ensuring that this community is sustainable over a long period of time and has the opportunity to diversify revenue streams. And I feel like LVGEA plays a really important role in trying to identify those businesses to locate here, to sort of demystify what it's like to be in Las Vegas or in Southern Nevada. And so being an advocate for the community is one of my favorite parts of this. And then also from a selfish perspective, talking about Roseman and our other higher education institutions, to be fair, as a huge asset to this community that may be overlooked. You talked about identifying workforce. All these new businesses that are coming in here need a ready workforce. And who's going to provide that? Well, the K-12 system for sure, but in some cases, those higher paying jobs are college educated jobs. And so Roseman plays a role in that. UNLV, CSN, Nevada State, we all play a role in that. And so being able to reassure or prove to potential businesses coming in that we have the ready pipelines of students and there's a good workforce here that they can leverage when they come into town.
Well, I appreciate you having you there, Renee, as part of the group. Like you said, mapping the pipeline, making sure that we're attracting businesses to a place where we do have the pipelines to sustain their needs. But that's enough about business. We want to talk about your personal side a little bit too. Tell our viewers, our listeners, what kind of hobbies, activities, bring you fulfillment when you're not working, when you're not doing community work? How do you spend your off time, recharging, replenishing? What makes you happy?
Well, the biggest one is travel. My husband and I love to travel. In fact, next week we're headed off to Iceland for the first time. Yeah.
Wow.
It'll be a lot cooler there than here. So that's also, it's a good time to go. But yeah, we like to travel, and I'm kind of the one that really likes to plan the travel. So I'm very organized. So I actually get into the travel, the planning piece of it a lot, and like really try to think out what's the best strategy to visit this country and how are we going to do it. So
that's the land of the volcanoes, right?
Yeah,
with the long names that you can't pronounce.
Yes, yeah. I'm just going to probably have to bleep over the signs when I see the names out there, because it is an interesting language.
Yeah, and there's really fancy, adventurous places where you take thermal water baths and.
Oh yeah, we've got one booked for our first day.
Wow, that's so cool! Can't wait to hear when you come back.
Yeah,
it's one of the things that I've always thought. I wonder if I would enjoy it. I see it on the Travel Channel. Some people that go and do the plunges, and I mean, these are frozen waters almost that people say it revitalizes you.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, the nice part is they have the cold plunges, and then right away you can go into one of their thermal baths.
Yeah.
So, and Iceland's very interesting geothermically. They run all of their power off of geothermal energy, and so they're heating their electrical bills, and they have heating in their floors and things like that. So, very interesting country. I'm looking forward to and the wildlife. We're going to see puffins and
those are those birds that they catch with that net on the cliff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, I can't wait to hear when you come back.
Yeah,
and they eat the puffin too.
Yeah, they eat puffin. I'm
going to ask you if you.
They have some weird fermented shark dish that is native. I don't think I'm going to go for the fermented shark. We'll have maybe twist my arm on the puffin. I don't know. They're so cute though.
Yeah, I know. They have those colors on them. Yeah, I think the whale is part of the diet over there too.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to eat some adventurous dishes.
We'll see.
Can't wait to ask you when you come back.
The one I'm looking forward to the most is my research. I got to research restaurants too, right? They make what's an ice cream using rye bread. So it's rye bread ice cream that everybody raves about. It doesn't sound like it would go together, right? But everybody raves about this ice cream. So that's on my to-do.
Absolutely. Rye bread ice cream. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're finding time to do the things that help you recharge. Renee, one of the questions we ask here a lot of people who are successful is, what advice would you give 18-year-old Renee, before maybe she knew she wanted to be in the healthcare industry, but not exactly know how and when and what to do. But I also often think, would the 18-year-old Jaime even listen to the advice I have to give now, right? But let's say it's any young person who sees you, relates to you, and says, I would love to have the type of career, the type of professional success Renee has had. What advice would you give them?
Well, I can tell you that if you had asked me when I was 18, do you want to be the president of a university? I would have said no. I would have thought that was like not within the realm, right? My plan was to go to pharmacy school, come back to my hometown and be a pharmacist there for the rest of my life. But what I would say to any 18-year-old is, and I'm so glad that I've had the career trajectory that I've had. It's been amazing, very rewarding. The most important thing I would say is to ensure that you're doing the best that you possibly can the entire time that you're doing it. So, I look back to my college years in particular, and, that 70% was the kids that got into my pharmacy school were all very smart, all did very well. But some of them, when they got into college, were like, okay, all I need to do is the 70%. And, what do they call the guy that graduated last in pharmacy school? They still call him pharmacist. And so they kind of like ratcheted back a little bit on doing their best the entire time. But I can tell you that for me to be able to go to graduate school, if I had taken that attitude when I was in college and hadn't striven to get the A's that I had gotten before, to do the best that I could in the classes that I had, I would not have been well positioned to get into a Ph.D. program. And so if you put out the effort and are ensuring that you're doing the best that you possibly can, so many more possibilities open up for you. And you don't want to close off those possibilities for lack of trying or for lack of effort. You want to make sure that those options are open to you. And then the other thing is to be open, to take risks. When we came here, I can tell you that my parents were very nervous about my husband and I quitting our jobs, right? Yeah. Kind of throwing all of that away and saying, okay, we're going to go into this venture. But when we looked at each other, we said, look, if we don't take this risk, we may end up regretting it for the rest of our lives. And we can always, we have something to fall back on. We can always go back and be pharmacists. But I think sometimes the fear of taking risks holds people back. So be open to those opportunities that come your way. And in fact, it's one of Roseman's core values is we call it responsible risk taking.
Wow.
So you take a risk, right? But you do all of your homework to understand what that risk is and be responsible about how you move forward in that risk so that you have some safety nets in place that you can fall back on should that risk not pay off.
That's great advice. And I love the word responsible risk because I've heard mitigated risk, calculated risk, but responsible risk, that's got a good, I like that name.
Yeah.
Renee, the last question we always ask our guests is an important one because, first of all, thanks for taking the time to come and share with us what makes Roseman special, but also your journey, which is special. But the last question we ask guests is, what events are coming up that you want our listeners and viewers to know about, whether it's Roseman or any LVGEA, other organizations that you're involved with, that people should keep their eye on because, they're in the near future?
Well, most people may know that we are starting our first medical school class, our MD granting medical school, got the approval to open in February. The first class of students are actually coming on campus at our Summerlin campus on July 21st. So we're super, super excited about that.
Yeah.
And we're really excited about those students beginning to make an impact on healthcare, even as their first year in medical school. But I will also tell you, and one thing, if you follow the Roseman history, you know that there's no moss growing on anybody at Roseman. We're always looking to what's the next thing that we can do to support healthcare and healthcare education in this valley. And so with the medical school starting, we've already started planning for our next program. It will be a degree program that will be first in Nevada again. It is a degree program that is very needed, particularly in our western states. So I'm giving you I'm dropping some breadcrumbs here before I get to the next announcement. Something that probably touches about at least 70 to 80% of residents in Southern Nevada. And let me ask you, Jaime, do you have a pet?
I do.
Our next program is designed to help you with your pet. We are starting a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program.
Wow.
It's healthcare just like human healthcare, and there's a lot of evidence to show about how pets and animals positively impact our lives and our health as humans.
Oh.
As we research programs, we always look for where can we make a difference? Where is there a need? There are only 33 colleges of veterinary medicine in the United States. The majority of those are east of the Mississippi. We saw during COVID how important pets became to everyone, and that pet population has grown. We need more veterinarians to take care of those pets. And it's actually harder to get into vet school than it is to get into med school, I have been told.
Wow.
So we're looking forward to, we're in the very early developmental stages of this program. We have hired our founding dean, though.
Wow.
She's started, and she's exciting. You'll have to have her on the podcast sometime. But that there's a movement called One Health, and it really talks about how all of these components, whether it's animals or humans and even agriculture, how they all come together to create a healthy environment, a healthy society. And they're so inextricably linked that you can't really pull them apart. So, we're going to do our part with starting a college of veterinary medicine here and, hopefully help to support the veterinarian community and not only small animals, but large animals. So few vets now go into large animal practice. And it's so important if you think of whether it's horses, if you think about all the horse activities that we have here in Southern Nevada, Northern Nevada, the ranches that we have in Northern Nevada, feed animals, making sure that those are appropriately taken care of. We need more vets, and Roseman is on the pathway to get that started.
What a great piece of news. Thank you for sharing that here. Yeah, because you always hear, we need to homegrow our own MDs, our own nurses, our own, and now we can say we're also going to homegrown our own veterinarians here as well.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that news, Renee. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
And when the time comes, yes, we'd love to talk more about it on this podcast with the dean. So
love it.
Well, again, thank you so much. I know it's been in the works for a while. I know I will see you soon to finish this search for the CEO at LVGEA, and I look forward to seeing you at other events as well. I can't thank you enough for making the time to come and spend this time with us here.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Renee. Well, that's it for another episode of the WC Podcast. We hope to see you at the next one. Until then, stay safe. Renee, thank you for staying over to do our bonus segment called Against the Wall. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The first section is called Your Favorites. So I'm going to give you a category, and I want to hear your favorite thing in that category. Let's start with an easy one. What's your favorite food?
Greek food.
Your favorite beverage with dinner?
Ooh, red wine.
Favorite car you've ever owned?
Oh, my green Camaro.
Favorite musical group or artist?
The Eagles.
Favorite movie?
Gosh, rapid fire. There's too many. The Godfather.
Favorite book?
Ooh, that's a good question. So many.
A couple is fine too. A few.
Let's see. I'll say the power of positive thinking.
Nice. Favorite college sports team?
The Purdue Boilermakers basketball team.
Favorite professional sports team?
The Vegas Golden Knights.
Very good. Carrie Boobles will be happy to hear that. So the second, you made it through the first segment with flying colors. The second one is called Tough Choices. It gets a little harder.
Okay.
I'm going to give you two choices. Hopefully you can pick one. Here's the first one. Klondike the polar bear or Purdue Pete?
Purdue Pete.
Vacation or staycation?
Oh, vacation.
Drive to your vacation spot or fly there?
Fly.
Once you get there, hotel or Airbnb?
Hotel.
One day when you retire, will it be in the ranch or in the city?
Ranch.
If you could choose, which one would it be? A day by the ocean or hiking in the mountains?
Hiking.
If you could be a superhero, would you rather have the ability to fly or breathe underwater?
Fly.
The ability to speak with animals or speak any foreign language?
Animals.
Actions or words?
Ooh. Actions.
Justice or grace?
Grace.
Well, you made it past Tough Choices. Good job. The last part is called Finish the Sentence, where I'm going to give you 95% of a sentence. You're going to finish it for me. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
If Renee could visit any place in the world, it would be?
The Galapagos Islands.
The best part about living here in Southern Nevada is?
The people.
Renee's favorite thing about her job at Roseman University is?
Touching the lives of students.
If Renee could travel back in time, she would travel to?
Medieval England.
And 3 words that describe Renee are?
Intelligent, caring, hopefully motivational.
I couldn't agree more. Doing the WC podcast here today with us was?
So awesome.
All right. Well, thank you for staying over for the bonus segment.